This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new value.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
You know, my dad had another saying, and I've been saying this for 20 years, but they're gonna put you all back in chains. They're gonna put you all back in chains. They're gonna put you all back in chains.
Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
In last week's video, I talked about the reason why black Democrats and black liberals call black conservatives and black Republicans the name Uncle Tom is because they haven't even read the book Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. But whenever these black Democrats are exposed to the racist history of the Democratic Party, they often repeat their learned response. They repeat that urban legend that somehow the Democratic Party and the Republican Party switched, that at some point in time in history, that racist Democrats became your modern day racist Republicans, and your good Abe Lincoln, freed and slave Republicans became your modern day help black folks out with welfare Democrats. It all sounds just so magical, doesn't it? If only they could prove that such an actual transfer of racism actually occurred, but they cannot. They cannot point at one point in time in history where there was a transfer of racism, that where Democrats became Republicans. But what liberals are doing is that they're pointing to two historical events that took place that need a little more clarity and nuance, so that we might avoid the oversimplification that there was actual transfer or shift of the racist agenda of the Democratic Party onto the Republican Party. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly clarify these two historical events and then come back to prove how the Democratic Party imperialistic agenda to suppress and control Africans and their descendants has never changed. So first, when they say that your original Republicans were liberals and that your original Democrats were conservatives, what they're pointing to is the economic shift in party platforms which took place. And it's absolutely true. Originally, your Republican Party consisted of many former members of the Whig Party who were for big government. That meant they believed that the government should take on financing infrastructure, education, protecting native industries, and policies that promoted rapid job growth. In contrast, originally your Democrats in the 1800s were a party focused on keeping taxes low. When it came to promoting commerce and generally speaking, they were a states' right party. This gradual economic shift in party platforms occurred between 1860 and 1936 and was primarily due to each party fighting for new constituents. A new voting bloc that was emerging in the West due to new states coming in after the Civil War. They went after these votes, both parties did. The Republican federal expansion that occurred in the 1860s and 70s greatly benefited big business. Businesses such as banks and railroads and manufacturing that were primarily based in the Northeast benefited greatly, while your small-time farmers, many who have moved out west, benefited very little from your Republican federal expansion. So what both parties attempted to do was to exploit the discontent in the West by promising the little guy some of the economic gain which had previously gone back out east. Basically what happened was the Democrats went west by promising farmers and the small guy that they were going to provide infrastructure and financing and help them. So what this did was it caused the Republican Party to adopt a counter economic position. They basically got out of financing infrastructure and adopted a hands-off government approach. So here, Even though there was an economic shift in party platforms, there was no shift in allegiance. Democrats did not become Republicans, and Republicans did not become Democrats because of this change in economic tactics, because of politics, okay? And clearly, this economic shift did not change the imperialistic, racist tactics of the Democratic Party. Because in 1924, the Democratic Party presidential candidate, John W. Davis, he argued in favor of separate but equal for the races. In 1937, Republicans organized opposition to former Ku Klux Klan Klansman Hugo Black, who had been appointed to the Supreme Court by FDR. Black's Klan background was not disclosed until after his appointment, until after his confirmation. In 1944, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Texas Democratic Party whites-only primary. Okay, so while there's a shift in economic policy, clearly there's no change in the racist agenda of the Democratic Party. Now, the second historical event that black liberals such as Clarence Page and Roland Martin have tried to rewrite history about or turn into an urban legend was in 1948, when a number of Southern Democrats stormed out of the Democratic Party National Convention in Philadelphia over the party's decision to incorporate civil rights into the party platform. This group later started calling themselves the States' Rights Democratic Party, also known as Dixiecrats. Okay, their plan was to back Senator Strom Thurmond for the presidency against the Democratic Party incumbent Harry Truman and the Republican nominee Thomas Dewey. Their Southern strategy was to capture all 127 Electoral College votes, which would prevent either Truman or Dewey from becoming president. The Dixiecrats planned to hold those votes hostage until either party decided to drop civil rights from the party platform. Now, when this plan failed, all but three of those segregationists, those racist Democrats, did not return back to the Democratic Party. All but three did not go home. Again, only three of those Dixiecrats became Republicans. Okay, so this is an urban legend. There was no shift. There was no magical switch of parties as a result of the Dixiecrat secession. It's just an urban legend. So here, as late as 1948, there is no switch in parties in regards to the imperial racist aggression against black Americans. But what about later? Well, in 1957, the Republican President Dwight Eisenhower passed the first civil rights law in 82 years, with 92% Republican support and only 54% Democratic Party support, barely half. In 1960, President Eisenhower signed the Republican Civil Rights Act, overcoming a 124-hour filibuster by 18 Senate Democrats. This Civil Rights Act ended up passing with 95% Republican support to 68% Democratic Party support. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act passed mainly due to Republican Minority Leader Everett M. Dirksen's perseverance, okay? Because it was also filibustered by Democrats. But it finally passed with 80% Republican support to 63% Democratic Party support. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, which abolished literacy tests that prevented blacks from voting in many states in the South, was signed into law, again, with a majority of Republicans voting more than Democrats. So clearly, as late as 1965, the Democrat Party is still an in-your-face racist organization against blacks. But after 1970, we don't hear much from them. You know, in regards to some in-your-face racism. What happened? Did these racist Democrats all of a sudden die off like the dinosaurs? Did they all of a sudden have an epiphany and turn into nice guys? No. What happened was a change in their imperialistic racist tactics. Not their philosophy or their ideology, but their tactics, okay? What happened? Two new things came along. There was an insertion of two new things. The first is that abortion became legal in 1973, and Democrats adopted Margaret Sanger's, founder of Planned Parenthood's Negro population control strategy to use birth control and abortion, eugenics, to keep the black population to an insignificant level. So just go ahead and think about the dream of Martin Luther King Jr. Because the only dream that came true was a dream of Margaret Sanger. Since 1973, 16 million black babies have been slayed through abortion, which makes abortion not only the #1 killer of blacks, but the #1 reason we are missing 38 million blacks in this country who could be contributing to society and making a significant impact. Abortion has been far more successful than the Democrats' Ku Klux Klan party could have ever dreamed of. And the Democratic Party has been behind the abortion genocide of black Americans 110%. Even in 2011, President Barack Obama, the half-black president, the abortion president, threatened to shut down the government if the Democrats took out Planned Parenthood's $500,000 subsidy from the federal budget. The Democrat Party has put the genocide of black Americans on the line. The racist agenda has not changed. Now it just goes by a new, clean name, reproductive health. Now, the next thing that happened was integration, okay? When certain blacks realized they can move out of their communities and into these better white communities, what that created, when your educated class and your business class leaves the community, it creates a vacuum. It creates a leadership vacuum. Now, throw into that vacuum, fill into that leadership gap, that leadership absence, welfare, okay, and food stamps. And what you create is a new economic slavery, because what happens is that the black woman realizes that she's better off with the government taking care of her than getting married, because the more kids she has out of wedlock, the more food stamps she receives, the more benefits that she receives, welfare benefits that she receives from the government, okay? What this does, this creates a cycle of poverty. It begins to create a cycle of poverty in fatherless homes in the black community. Now, also insert into that leadership gap in the community, drugs, okay? Now, 80s, gang violence, fighting, black on black crime, okay? So what happens by 1990s, late 1990s, what you have is black out of wed birth rate up to around 70%. 1/3 of black males are either incarcerated or jailed. HIV is destroying the community. So the Democratic Party agenda has not changed. I mean, it don't stop. It don't quit. I mean, the Democratic Party is still about that same old. Usually when we think of imperialism, we think of countries that have used military force and politics to conquer another nation. I mean, the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the British Empire comes to mind. But there's another form of imperialism that is far more dangerous because it controls the mind. And it lasts much longer because of it. The base idea of imperialism is race superiority. Whatever that race is, it believes that it has a right to rule those who it conquers. Imperialism says that I know better for you than you know for yourself. For nearly 300 years, the Democratic Party of the United States has exercised a form of psychological imperialism over blacks of America. They know better for us than we know for ourselves. And we have allowed them to govern us, to rule us, to feed us, to clothe us, to shelter us. And we also allowed them to scare us, first with whips and chains, and then with the KKK and Jim Crow laws, and now with these scary boogeyman stories about the mean Republican Party and the racist GOP. No, the Democratic Party has not changed. There was no switch. All they changed was their tactics. Like Margaret Sanger advised them to, they got a few blacks on their team, preachers preferably, those who you will believe and trust, and they used them to get you back on their plantation so they can rule you as imperialists do. And they have. And look at you. You're worse off now than you were when you were back on the cotton fields. As Malcolm X said back in 1964, and I'll play the whole segment after I'm done here. He said that you people, you blacks who vote for Democrats are chumps and traitors to your race, because they make you promises, these Democrats do, but they don't fulfill them. They don't live up to them, but you still vote for them anyway. You still put them back in office. Malcolm X said, "You're a chump. You're a chump, those who vote for Democrats, knowing that they aren't going to do anything for you, knowing that they're just going to stab you in the back." This has been A Word with David L. Gray. For more information about the content of this video, visit me online at davidlgray.info. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'm uploading videos every weekend. Make sure you follow me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I'm looking forward to your comments below. Until then, and until next time, blessings and shalom to you and to yours.
Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who'll go to the White House and who'll stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You can keep Johnson in Washington, D.C., or you can send him back to his Texas cotton patch. You're the one who sent Kennedy to Washington. You're the one who put the present Democratic administration in Washington, D.C. The whites were evenly divided. It was the fact that you threw 80% of your votes behind the Democrats that put the Democrats in the White House. When you see this, you can see that the Negro vote is the key factor. And despite the fact that you are in a position to be the determining factor, what do you get out of it? The Democrats have been in Washington, D.C. only because of the Negro vote. They've been down there 4 years. And all other legislation they wanted to bring up, they brought it up and gotten it out of the way, and now they bring up you. And now they bring up you. You put them first and they put you last. Because you're a chump. A political chump. In Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives, there are 257 who are Democrats. Only 177 are Republicans. In the Senate, there are 67 Democrats. Only 33 are Republicans. The party that you bash controls 2/3 of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and still they can't keep their promise to you, because you're a chump. Anytime you throw your weight behind a political party that controls 2/3 of the government, and that party can't keep the promise that it made to you during election time, and you're dumb enough to walk around continuing to identify yourself with that party, you're not only a chump, but you're a traitor to your race. And what kind of alibi do they come up with? They try and pass the buck to the Dixiecrats. Now, back during the days when you were blind, deaf, and dumb, ignorant, politically immature, naturally you went along with that. But today, as your eyes come open and you develop political maturity, you're able to see and think for yourself. And you can see that a Dixiecrat is nothing but a Democrat in disguise.
Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going on.